Like I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm my limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm my limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Born to kill it, lost before I'd ever tell. Stone pillars, crack under the weight of hell. Got a vision, blood all in the wishing well. I'm about to blow out my chakras, baby. Cause I slide, I drift through dimensions. It's not tough for me, it's too much for you. Look once, twice, I'm time bending. Beam upon my chest, but I'm slipping through. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Throw the answers to keep them quiet. Let that feel burn, we never try it. Live a long time, make up reviving. Stay to fight it, or die silent.
Sure can I hit? Curse mark on my wrist. Cause all these black diamonds dancing like they don't fit. Showing on my eyes, but I see through the best. Village in the leaves, but I never left. Can you feel the lightning when I strike out? Try to replicate, but you don't have the guts. I feel like I'm going with the lights out. There's a demon in my body and it's calling for blood.
Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Throw the answers to keep them quiet. Let that feel burn, we never try it. Live a long time, make up reviving. Stay to fight it, or die in silence. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Born to kill it, lost before I'd ever tell. Stone pillars, crack under the weight of hell. Got a vision, blood all in the wishing well. I'm about to blow out my chakras, baby. Cause I slide, I drift through dimensions. It's not tough for me, it's too much for you. Look once, twice, I'm time bending. Beam upon my chest, but I'm slipping through. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Jet black, I'm masked by the night. Cold heart, throw that to the side, yeah. I'm a limit, but I never push it farther. Cause I live to be a hero, not a martyr. Throw the answers to keep them quiet. Let that feel burn, we never try it. Live a long time, make up reviving. Stay to fight it, or die in silence.
Sure can I hit? Curse mark on my wrist. Cause all these black diamonds dancing like they don't fit. Showing on my eyes, but
it seemed like we were just here all together less than 24 hours ago. Oh my goodness. Hello, all you BC WrestlePod nerds out there, and welcome to another rendition of Grapple Gurus, your PPV and PLE, depending on the company that we're reviewing. This is the pay-per-view review show here on the BC WrestlePod YouTube, Twitch, Network, Syndicate, conglomeration thing we got going on. That's a lot to say in one breath. But I am your host, Mikey, known as El Jefe around these parts. And tonight I have the entirety of the Takedown Troop, which is our TNA review squad. First and foremost, you know, he is back from hiatus as a 1 night to 2 night only appearance and then going back into the depths of whatever it is. But Andrew, Mr. A to Z himself, is in the building. Happy to have you here. Loving the Hellfire Club shirt you're rocking tonight.
Thank you. It's been 3 nights in a row, actually.
That's true, because you were also here for our TNA review on Friday. So I'm happy to have you. This is the last thing you get to do before you go back into the nether, but hopefully you won't stay there for too much longer. And then, of course, last but certainly not least, sandwiched between myself and Andrew on the screen is Papa also himself, Will, who is my TNA and my CMLL and my newly founded MLP partner in crime. So we're adding hats to Will's resume. So, Will, I'm happy to have you here because this is going to be a fun conversation for sure.
Indeed.
Alrighty. So, if you are unfamiliar with how Grapple Gurus works, we will be going over the pay-per-view. With TNA specifically, we will be going through the countdown and the main card. So strap in for the next hour and some odd change because it's about to get crazy. But we are going to be talking about the highs and lows of this year's Bound for Glory. These are our opinions. We would love to interact with you, so drop your thoughts in the chat. But before we get into that, just a fair warning. We want you to be respectful, and even if you disagree, there is a way to do so. If you are caught being rude, mean, or saying anything that belongs in any of the ism categories, which is racism, xenophobiaism, sexism, you know, anything like that, you will be blocked and you will be banned. This is your one warning now. In the words of Willy Wonka, you lose. Good day, sir. Now that we got that disclaimer out of the way, let us jump straight into what we are going to be talking about tonight, which is Bound for Glory, which is the final Big Four pay-per-view for TNA this year. But we got 2 more pay-per-views from then in Turning Point and Final Resolution to close out the year. But this is probably what I would equate to WWE's WrestleMania, if I'm going to be honest. Bound for Glory has always been built in TNA's history as the end-all, be-all big show for the company, which is equivalent to WrestleMania. A lot of people think Slammiversary is, but I view Slammiversary as the Summer Slam, since Slammiversary usually takes place in the summer. But enough of the jibber-jabber. Let's just jump into it. So we are going to begin with the countdown show because we had 2 matches and 2 little segments that we're going to talk about. But first, we kick off with what opened the countdown show, which is this tag team match that was made the day of the pay-per-view in the morning, which sees Ash and Heather by Elegance taking on the team of Xia Brookside and NXT's Brindley Reese. Brindley was attacked by Ash and Heather not too long ago, and then Xia and Brindley interrupted the launch party that was Heather by Elegance's debut in her new look. You know, the Xia and Brindley got the best of the girls, which led to this tag team match. So first and foremost, before we talk about the match itself, can we just say I love tag teams, even throw together tag teams that have matching outfits. So first and foremost, Ash and Heather by Elegance were the Angel and the Devil. Though Heather, we need to talk about that boot cover, girl. We need to get it fixed because she was fighting for her life with that thing. Thankfully, no one got hurt. She didn't slip. None of the other competitors slipped. And then, of course, Brindley Reese and Xia Brookside matching in color. Brindley Reese looking like a jazzercise, exercise person out of the 80s. And Xia looking like Xia Brookside, which we know and love. I actually really enjoyed this match. This was a lot of fun. This was fun, and the crowd was behind it. Andrew, I'm going to go to you first to expand upon this, but what did you think of this opener of a match for the Countdown show?
Like I said, when we were watching this in the countdown show, I felt like this was a smart match to open up with. TNA doesn't have quite as much of the pomp and circumstance as some of the other companies do when it comes to their shows. They keep it a little smaller, but I like that they opened up. That first look of Ash and Heather by Elegance when they came out in their gear was a really good way to kind of start off the show. And I thought these two teams worked really well against each other and together as tag teams. It was fun to see Brindley Reese come over from NXT, having watched her there and been a fan of her over there too. I thought she worked really well with Zaya. I thought it was a fun match, and I thought it was a good way to kind of put the ladies by Elegance over, since they are going to be. I'm assuming going to be doing more with them in TNA. I don't know if we're going to keep seeing Zaya interacting with them, or if we're going to see them try to go after the tag team titles, or Heather going to help Ash try to go after that Knockouts World title. But it was a fun opener for sure.
And Will, same question to you. This is what opened up the countdown show for Bound for Glory. How did we feel about this last minute addition to the card?
It was good. I liked it. I thought it was a great opener. It was fun. It was, borderline on a little bit of the silly, which is great because, the whole, Ash by Elegance and her concierge is sort of a whimsical, fun little thing. And now that they've added Heather by Elegance to the mix, it was just sort of that fun. And their whole entrance is just fun. And of course, Zaya and Brindley, who I like, but I actually like all four of these women. Brindley Reese just cracks me up. I love her. I've loved her since the first day I met her. And and I love now, and I actually really, really like her and Zaya's team. I really like them as a team. And of course, I like Ash and Heather. I thought they worked well. I thought it was fun that Ash was mentoring Heather throughout the whole match, and I thought, and Heather was like, okay. So it kind of made it fun to watch. But I thought it was a pretty good opener. I thought it opened the evening. It's kind of set us up for kind of a fun evening.
Absolutely. So if it wasn't already, clear in our discussion, Ash and Heather by Elegance do pick up the victory because Zaya Brookside was choking out George Eichmann, the concierge, which allowed both Ash and Heather to get the best of Brindley for the win. I was like, I'm telling you, vendettas are going to be the downfall of lots of wrestlers. Have we learned nothing? But anyways, I thought this was a fun match to open. And we move on with the rest of the countdown. We're going to just quickly go through the next two segments because we do have this year's TNA Hall of Fame inductees. So first one is the legendary Bob Ryder, who was a backstage person. And I have to say, I love that TNA, when they do these Hall of Fame people, they also not only do the talent, but they do the people behind the scenes, which I think is super important. And as it was stated through Eric Young's speech of Bob Ryder, this man was in charge of getting the wrestlers to where they needed to be, and was just also a decent human being and loved the professional wrestling business. So Eric Young, I loved his speech, almost made me tear up a little bit. I was like, But when I tell you, so this next man, right, Rhino, who is also inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. Now, we have made jokes and we've talked about his appearance and everything like that. We always crack some jokes around Rhino. But I will say, by the end of his speech, as long-winded as it was, I have more respect for the person that is Rhino. I was just like, he cleans up nice. Again, we're joking around with that. But he is a down-to-earth human being. I was like, damn, Rhino. I like you a little bit more now. So you are great. Which we'll talk about you in a little bit because I feel like you were cheated. But anyways, after our Hall of Fame inductees, I should say that Tommy Dreamer inducted Rhino into the Hall of Fame this year. We get into the final portion of the countdown show. Yes, we have to talk about it because we have the Call Your Shot Gauntlet, which for those of you who do not know what the Call Your Shot is, think of it as like TNA's version of the Money in the Bank briefcase, where the winner gets to call their shot at any time, any place for a championship match of their choosing. And the cool thing with TNA is that any championship can be up for a Call Your Shot, including the tag titles, which is a really great concept. Let's be real. So this year's Call Your Shot was not as crazy as last year's. Last year's was definitely a lot better, but there was some fun stuff in here. I will say probably some of my highlights include the return of Zach and Trey. So Zach Wentz and Trey Miguel specifically. So the Rascals are reunited and back in TNA. So it was nice to see them. I love watching Jake destroy people in this match. It was fantastic. We had the return of Trent Seven, which made me super happy because I know he's been out for a little bit post his match with Mustafa Ali at Against All Odds back in June. Some other things. I love watching Tasha Steele's twerk, which was hilarious. Miss Lee, like taking names and karate kicking people in the face was fantastic. I'm trying to prolong this as much as I can because we do need to talk about the final two, which after everyone is eliminated, once we get down to the final two, then it becomes a standard one-on-one match, which we had Rhino, the Detroit hometown hero, and Frankie Kazarian. And lo and behold, Frankie Kazarian is the Call Your Shot Gauntlet winner this year. Yay. Look, I speak for everyone here on this panel. We are not excited that Frankie Kazarian wins because now his punk ass is going to be hanging around the championship scene and he's going to screw it up for somebody. Will, I'm going to start with you first. Talk about the gauntlet match and your overall thoughts and feelings of our winner, the king of TNA himself, Frankie Kazarian.
Well, okay. So you're right. This Call Your Shot Gauntlet was nowhere near what it was last time. The last one was just badass. This one felt like, hey, we have to do this. Let's throw some people. We already know what's going to happen, but let's just throw some people in there that people haven't seen for a while, and we'll get the crowd all excited for that, for the disappointment at the end. So that's kind of what it felt like. And I was like, oh, okay, that's great. The Rascals were back. That was great to have them in the ring together. Of course, it's always great to have Jake in the ring destroying people, like you said. And it was fun to have Rhino there too, because he was just inducted, and that was kind of cool. And and then just everyone that was sort of coming in. Of course, all the people that we saw there were basically on MLP. It was basically that whole roster just came over for the Call Your Shot Gauntlet, and so I was like, okay, it's cool. I mean, it didn't feel the same as it did last year. Because last year I was like on edge. I was like, who's going to do what? Who's doing what? Oh my goodness. It was like, oh my God. This time I was like, okay, we all knew what was going to happen. We were hoping it wouldn't, but we all knew. We knew the outcome of it. We already knew. And that kind of bummed me out on it a little bit. I was kind of like, okay, why even go through this when we already know what's happening? So, other than just to give him that power to hold over whoever he wants to, but I was just like, I could have done without it. I mean, it wasn't horrible. I mean, I liked watching all of the folks that were coming in, and I think it's sad that there were only 2 women involved, but I think we could have had a lot more women involved in that, and probably would have made it a lot more interesting. Because a lot of these guys, I mean, we see them all the time. If you think about it, I mean, other than the people they brought in that we haven't seen in a while, but they always overuse people, and it drives me crazy. Even though I do like the people they overuse, it's just it wasn't as thrilling as it was last time.
And that's very fair. It also didn't help that the Call Your Shot last year was on the actual main show and not the countdown. Andrew, I come to you next. So what did you think about the Call Your Shot Gauntlet and your thoughts on our winner?
I'll be less nice. I This was my low point of the night. Honestly, it was the lull for me, really. Which I guess it was good that we got through it, and then we got to the rest of the main card, which brought everything up. Um, Especially about a third of the way into this, I found myself more interested or maybe more hopeful every time. Like, we got about 15 seconds into a new entrant, and I was already like, okay, who's next? Who's coming out next? Because while there were people that were interesting in the like, oh, that's kind of fun, there was no one that was interesting in the like, I'm looking forward to seeing this person in TNA. I hope this person wins. Like, there were too many people that I knew weren't going to win. And I looked over the list from last year, and we had we, there were so many people in the Call Your Shot Gauntlet last year that were on the main card wrestling for titles or in big matches this year, that it showed how overstacked that was versus what we got this year, and it was kind of a bummer. Especially because I don't know if it was like they were trying to protect people or what, but the fact that we had so many big names that went in early and then got eliminated early, that when it came down to, even the last 6, 7, 8 people, it was just way too obvious as to who was going to win, because none of the other people were going to win that Call Your Shot Gauntlet. And as far as Frankie winning, like Will said, we all knew it was going to happen. We all knew it was likely going to happen after that. I'm happy that we didn't get the result that we got at the end. I'm not happy with the result that we got at the end, but at least if you're going to do it with that, like, do something more interesting. And the fact that he still has that possibility, at least I guess is something.
Right. And, to kind of wrap this up before we go into the main card, I think why I enjoyed last year's Call Your Shot better is that even when we got to the final two, there was no way that Bully Ray was going to win. There was a slight moment where I thought he was, but Jordan winning totally made sense. And, she cashed that thing in later down the line, which was really cool. But last year's was more grand because we had some surprise appearances from some legends. We had some folks from the independency come in, like Miss Sunny Kiss was there. As much as I do not like Bully Ray as a person and a wrestling character, I will have to give him credit because he did put over Sunny by doing that fun little dance-off spot they had, and then allowing Jordan Grace to decimate him when we got to the final two as well. Well, I say allow, but let's be real. Jordan can take on anybody and everyone. So I was like, but letting Jordan Bully Ray kind of having Jordan do whatever she wanted to fight him was awesome. And it was just like more pomps and circumstances. Like, everyone was fighting like, all right, we need to get this to be an awesome part of the show, because last year's card, again, while the build to the pay-per-view was doo-doo, the card was stacked, and that all the people in the Call Your Shot Gauntlet realized we have to figure out how we're going to deal with the Monsters Ball match, the Will Ospreay and Bayley match, the Alex Shelley and Josh Alexander main event. Like, everybody was in that match. And you're right, Will, because there was also more knockouts in that match, because we had Jordan, Tasha, Kylan King was involved. She made it to the final 3, which I was mad that Bully Ray tossed her out because I wanted to see Jordan and Kylan. Of our knockouts division currently is either, the internet hates me right now. Bully Ray heard this and he's trying to destroy the internet. But we only had 2 knockouts this year because the majority of our other knockouts are either having other matches on the card, or they're hurt, or in the case of Kylan King, she's pregnant. So I don't know. We all knew Frankie was going to win. It kind of comes into play a little bit later, which we'll talk about, but not really. But we're going to move on from this because it's time for the main card. And we were sitting here last night wondering, I wonder what we're going to start with next. So we got to get the crowd invested. We got to pick something. So I'm like, you know what? They will open with like Moose or something, or we'll have the Knockouts Tag Team Championships open. We'll get the crowd ready for what's to come. I was not ready for this to open the card. I'm like, damn, TNA, we're just going to come out hot in the gate. But to open up the main card, the first match to happen on the main show for Bound for Glory is for the X Division Championship. This is Speedball Mike Bailey defending his title against the returning Vikingo, who is, coming off of injury for pretty much since February into January. So he's been out for a good chunk of 2024. He is back from injury, and he decides to not take it slow. He decides to go up against, Karate Kid Tom Cruise's cousin, Mike Bailey, over here. So this might sound very bad when I say this, but I want to preface by saying this. I really enjoyed this match. This was a lot of fun. It was a great match, but I still think it is not fair, but I have to. Will versus Bailey was more crazy. And they did crazy stuff, but I guess I wanted more, but I guess it makes sense because you don't want Vikingo to re-injure himself. And there were times in this match where I thought he hurt himself again. I'm like, no, we just got you back. I'm going to come to you first, Andrew. Hot out the gate, TNA decided to put the X Division Championship on the line to open it up the show. How did we feel about Bailey and Vikingo, and did it live up to your expectations?
I'll agree with you there. It wasn't as crazy as I expected. Like, I would give this match an A, but I was expecting it to be an easy A+. Oh, we're following Mikey. No, we're not. Oh, back to Mikey. It was a good match. Don't get me wrong. I thought it was a lot of fun. They both did some crazy stuff. I feel like it especially picked up in the second half. That top rope Canadian Destroyer on the apron was insane. The fact that we saw so many of the near finishes. It was a really good match. I think the biggest issue I had with this was these two are so good that a really good match isn't the great match that I expected from it, but it was still really good. It was still technically one of the best matches of the night. I thought this was going to easily be my match of the night. It wasn't. I still enjoyed it. I mostly, coming out of this event, want to know how Vikingo is going to be on Thursday, the new X Division champion, but I guess we'll find out soon.
I'm like, when they did the bumpers at the end of the show and they said, well, our new our new X Division champion will be in action, I was just like, TNA, we put the wrong thing on there. Now that makes me wonder, we can speculate all we want. I wonder if Vikingo was actually going to win, and then they called an audible to have Mike Bailey win. I don't know. That's kind of crazy, but we can speculate all we want. I'm going to go over to Will now to get his thoughts on our opening match of the main card. What'd you think?
I like the match. I agree with everything that everyone else has said so far. I mean, I think that the Bailey Will Ospreay fight was way better. This was not a bad match, but this is my thing about this match is it felt like the same person was fighting themselves. And I was just sort of like, oh, okay. I mean, yeah, there were some really cool moves. There was some really cool, great moments, but it was literally like I felt like the same person they were fighting. And so I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of difference between the two of them. I didn't feel like there was a lot of variety in the match. I felt like, there was the funny, and like I said, there was some fun moments, like the Karate Kid moment was funny. And, but of course that walk on that top rope, man, that was crazy. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. But overall, it was like, oh, this is a really great match. It was cool. I literally felt like, either there were two Mike Baileys in the ring or two Vikingos in the ring. I mean, that's what it felt like. I mean, I didn't feel, I've been on this sort of trip lately about changing things up, and I just think that it was like the same. and again, and it was just the same. And I just
So-
and it was not that it was bad, because it wasn't bad. It's just I really wanted something different. I was expecting something different, I think, and I didn't get that.
And I also don't think it helps specifically for you and me, Will, because we did get something different from Mike Bailey the week ago when he fought Konosuke Takeshita at the MLP show. Like, that was different because Takeshita is not a high flyer. He is a
Yeah, he's a grounded
How
guy. I mean,
he
he's a
he's a powerhouse type of wrestler, but he can also he's also very quick on his feet, which made Speedball over here have to change up his tactics in order to tackle that. I love Bailey and I love Vikingo, and I thought this was a really great match. But I agree with you, Will, in the sense that I wanted something more, and then I agree with you, Andrew, in the sense that. Well, pretty much everything that you said too. Like, this was a good and a fun match, and it was great, but I wanted it to be spectacular because we know that these two can go, and I feel like they kind of played it safe. Now, they may have played it safe because they didn't want to, aggravate Vikingo's injuries he's just came off of. But if that was the case, then you could have saved this for. You could have said, why put him here? Maybe you could have gave him some time to, get the ring rust off in a sense, and then maybe have Bailey fight him, I don't know, at Turning Point or even at Final Resolution would have been fine too. Or you could have saved it for what we're about to talk about later with Genesis. This could be a match at Genesis with Vikingo getting enough reps in to be ready for it. I agree with both of you. I thought this was a good match. It was a great match. I just wanted it to be spectacular because we know both of these two can put on a hell of a show, and we've seen it before. This was good, but I wanted it to be great and spectacular. So we move on from here because then we get into our, I don't want to say basic match, but this was probably the easiest one to call. But this is for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship. This is our champion Spitfire, which is Danny Luna and Jody Threat, defending their titles against the team of Rosemary and NXT's Wendy Chu. First and foremost, I want to give kudos to all four of these women because I love the matching outfits that we had going on for their, attire, with Wendy Chu and Rosemary channeling demonic energy, and then Danny Luna and Jody Threat with the houndstooth pattern in their ring gears. Fantastic. Love that. This was a good match. This was fun. I'm going to be very respectful, and I mean this with the best intentions, but this was a good match, but I felt like this was more like a TNA television type of match than it was on a pay-per-view. And that's no fault to any of these four women. It's just that because of the lack of depth that our Knockouts tag team division is currently having with right now, there was not really much of a story leading into this either, because they literally made this match 2 weeks before the pay-per-view. And we, outside of Wendy and Jody having that match on the Go Home show, before this, neither of them had any interaction. Neither team had any interaction going into it because Rosemary and Wendy were dealing with Jordan and Sol Ruka for the last couple of weeks. So it's weird that we have them here. I thought this was a good match. I thought it was fun, but again, I felt like this would have been more better set for like maybe a semi or even main event of the TNA weekly show instead of a pay-per-view. Will, I'm going to come to you first. How did you feel about this match? And am I off my rocker for thinking that this was better suited as a television match than on the pay-per-view?
You're probably off your rocker, but not because of this. I kid, of course. This was probably one of my lower points of the evening, which is sad because it's a women's match, and I hate that. I feel that way. But to me, this just felt like a setup for what happened at the end. I think this whole match was just for that one moment. And that was a little irritating to me because I was like, because we had no build up to it, like truly. Honestly, if we look back, there was very little of anything. And I don't even really know why this match was happening story-wise. I was like, oh, I love Spitfire and I love Rosemary and I like Wendy Chu. So I was like, oh, well, yeah, okay, that's cool. So maybe they're just doing a women's match to have a women's match in there. And I was like, which I would have been okay with. But to me, it literally felt like the whole match was only there for that one moment at the end. And that was a little irritating to me because I'm like, this, and mainly because, and it's going to go with what you said, they could have done that on a weekly show. That didn't have to be on a pay-per-view because it wasn't spectacular enough. It wasn't heavy enough. It wasn't, I don't think it was pay-per-view worthy. You know, it was like, because it wasn't even that big of a deal. I was like, okay, we all kind of knew that was going to happen. I mean, duh. So I don't really know why they chose to do it on the pay-per-view. Again, I love all four of these women. I think they're all great wrestlers. And I'm witnessing them in previous matches. It's like, yeah, I just don't think this was meant to be here. I just don't. So unfortunately, this was one of my low points.
Andrew, we tag you in next with your thoughts. How do we feel about our TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championship match?
I mean, I can't disagree. I mean, I feel like this wasn't even the most exciting Spitfire match. I feel like the rivalry they had against the Militia was a little more exciting, and maybe it's because we had more of a build-up. I don't know. I feel like we could have seen more theatricality maybe from Rosemary and Wendy Chu, since they're the supernatural evil kind of beings. Maybe if we would have had some kind of stipulation to this, I don't know. I mean, I said it when we were talking about our predictions, what I thought was going to happen, and like Will was saying, it felt like a lot of it was for that payoff. But I also agree with you, Mike. I think the thing that this suffered from, the thing that we've been suffering from, and we saw this in the Croatia Gauntlet too, is we don't really have much of a knockouts division, especially when you consider the fact that there's 2 knockouts titles which take up 3 different competitors. So when we start splitting it up, it's like, it's pretty much, okay, who's challenging for the knockouts world title? Okay, then which of the others can we throw together into a tag team to compete for the tag team titles? Which is kind of a bummer because Spitfire was such a well-built tag team and they're doing such a good job. I feel like they really deserve to have a division of tag teams that they're facing off against and looking like legitimate tag team champions. And I feel like they did such a good job with Jordan Grayson making up for the lack of a knockouts division, with building up the people that they did have to be competitors. Like they did with Ash, and like built her up to be a challenger, and they were smart at how they paced that out. Bringing in women from NXT, bringing in people from other places like Steph DeLander. The Hex came in, and then we never saw them again. But I feel like we're not doing that with the Knockouts Tag Team titles. We either need to bring in more women to be in TNA long term and actually invest in them like we seem to be doing in a lot of the men, or we need to at least do a good job of bringing over legitimate tag teams and competitors from other promotions to challenge for these titles and make the champions feel like champions. But I mean, I don't know if there's just not a lot of them out there, but where are the women's versions of Nick Nemeth and Mike Santana and Mustafa Ali? These people who are coming from other promotions and coming here and wanting to like make a name for themselves in someplace else. But yeah, I feel like that's kind of what we suffer from here. It wasn't a bad match. Like technically they did a great job. It just wasn't as exciting. It didn't feel like it had the weight that a title match should have.
Yeah, and as much as I didn't like the Collier's Shot Gauntlet because it felt very lackluster, I think this also kind of felt lackluster. And I want to preface, I don't put the blame on, Spitfire or Rosemary or Wendy in this case. It's because as both of you brought up and the conversation we've been having on TNA for pretty much the last like 2 or 3 months, we have such a lack of depth of knockouts tag teams that it's really hard to try to find something compelling in order, to have like a solid story feud going on in this division. I mean, granted, when again, like you brought up, Andrew, I think Spitfire versus Militia, and then the do or die situation they found themselves in, that if they lost against them, they would break up. Which, of course, we figured they weren't going to, but at least there were stakes. We built up this feud. And then, Militia broke up, which then led into what we're going to talk about later in the card. But now, outside of Ash and Heather, where do we go next for Spitfire? Because honestly, outside of the Elegance girls and maybe Zaya and Brindley, but I doubt it, we don't have any other tag teams in the Knockouts division right now. I'm still mad at TNA. I don't know what happened, if they decided not to, but I really was hoping that TNA was going to side, the Hex, which is Marty Bell and Allison Kay. Like, I thought that we were going to sign them. Kylan King is out. We have Killer Kelly out still. So I don't know what's going on with all these, but TNA really needs to start looking into some knockouts they want to sign, and let's start building this division up too, because we're okay right now in the singles division, but we're also going to run into that problem very soon, especially come 2025 when some of these girls and gents are going to be moving on to other things when their contracts are up. So again, I agree with Will. For me personally, this was my low point, and it was just because it was lackluster. Not that the match is bad, but this could have been just on the regular TV show, on the regular weekly, and I would have been fine. This did not scream pay-per-view worthy match to me, and it sucks because I like everyone involved. But we're going to move on from here, because after we had this match is where things started to go on an upward trajectory a little bit, because next up we have a grudge match, if you will. So this is a singles match of Josh Alexander versus Steve Macklin. This has been a story that we've been telling since Slammiversary, because Josh turned heel at Slammiversary by kicking Joe Hendry in the nards and costing him in that elimination match for the TNA World Championship, which then led to Josh and Joe having a feud in which Joe beat Josh at Victory Road. And then Josh pulled a swerve, not Strickland, by coming out and apologizing. And he's like, I was wrong, you guys. Like, I don't want to be that. I'm a locker room leader, yada, yada, yada. And then he turns on Eric Young, and then he has recruited Sinner and Saint to form the Northern Armory, which I am super happy that we have this new faction going on in TNA, which then has led to Josh decimating Eric Young, attacking Steve Macklin, and thus this is why this match is here. This match was really good. I actually really enjoyed this. I think this match did what it needed to, because obviously this isn't over by a long shot, but this made me root for Steve Macklin so much more than I have before. I was just like, damn, Macklin showed a lot of heart in this match. I want to know how long they practiced with getting those moves right when Macklin had his hands tied behind the back. My favorite part of this whole entire match, there are two things. One is when Macklin, when he was handcuffed, did the running through the middle rope, like side, like body check into Josh Alexander. I'm like, do you know how much the margin of error was there? That it could have gone horribly wrong, especially since he didn't have his hands to brace himself. I was like, ooh, that was good. And then I actually really, because I seen some folks not like the ending, but I like that Macklin passed out instead of tapping or saying I quit. Because yes, Josh won, but something tells me Josh is not going to, be okay with that, because he wants to obliterate Macklin. And by Macklin not saying he quit, that's going to cause a rematch, which I'm excited for. Andrew, I'm going to tag you in first. This has been a really fun story that we've been getting the last couple weeks. So did it pay off in this first meeting of these two, which commentary added? This was the match we were supposed to get for the championship.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this match was a lot of fun. It was super hard hitting. I do love the fact that we've seen a complete 180 from both of these guys. Last year when I started coming back to TNA was right about the time Macklin was coming back, and he was teaming up with Bully Ray and was it Moose? No, it was somebody else, but they were attacking Josh Alexander, and he was coming back trying to get at Alexander because of the whole issue of them, the ambiguity about the titles and who should be the champion and everything. I enjoyed this match a lot, and then when we got to the point where Steve Macklin was wrestling with his hands zip tied behind his back was just insane. Watching the moves that he was doing, watching the moves that he was taking were crazy. I also loved that they went for the ankle lock way. He had his hands zip tied, so he literally couldn't do anything. So yeah, it was a really fun match. This was the kind of match when you want a really good match that there's no title on the line. I'll be interested to see what we're going to see from here between this feud and also what we're going to get more from Josh Alexander and the Northern Armory, because I think both this will help push Alexander up into the title picture, being that force again in TNA. But also the nice thing is I think this will kind of help bring up Sinner and Saint. And it's nice to finally get them out here and potentially having more of an impact, no pun intended, on the tag team title picture.
Man, I am so ready to see Sinner and Saint throw down in the tag team division. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But we're going to tag Andrew out, and we're tagging Will in for his thoughts on this match and, how he felt about where the story has gone so far. So, Will, what did you think of Macklin versus Alexander?
This was definitely a high point of the evening. This match was unhinged, more unhinged than I thought it was going to be. This was probably the one time that I was okay with them doing the same thing over and over again with the zip ties, only because of what Macklin did once he was zip tied, which absolutely just jaw dropped me. I was like, oh wow, okay. Of course, the theatrical person in me was like, oh god, someone's going to die, so someone's going to get injured, so god. But it was thrilling, and I really liked it, and I love that. And I've mentioned this in the past, the idea of these two men completely juxtaposing characters, that now, Josh is like the ultimate bad guy and Macklin is like becoming like the dad of the group and it's like protector and all this. And it's super interesting to see that switch. And I really like it, actually. When Josh was first transitioning, I was kind of like, I don't think this will be believable. He's been such the good guy. And then I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, he's going to have somebody equally as nasty turn good. And of course they went with Macklin, which was perfect choice. So eventually I kind of got on board with it. And I was like, okay. And then he got his little minions with him, which I love. I love that he has these two little minions, is what I'm going to call them, because that's what they are at this point. And they basically do whatever he tells them to do, and I love it. Which is going to be great, because down the road somewhere they're going to turn against him. It's going to happen. He's going to push him. He's going to push him the wrong way one too many times, and they're going to switch sides or something. But I thought it was a really good match, and I have to agree with you on this part. I like the ending. I like the fact that Macklin passed out, because in all technicality, even though Josh won, he didn't win, which was so great. Because I was like, oh, well, you won the match, but you haven't won the war, my man. And with him passing out, it was like he couldn't live in that moment of pure victory, which I think is going to, again, it's going to push him even harder to come after Macklin. And I'm excited and I can't wait to see it. So I love this turn for both of them. I think it has added so much more intricacies to TNA now that we've got these two big name, big face guys have completely switched, and it's just so great. I just love it. I love this storyline.
Right. And I think the cool thing is too, we have Joe Hendry and Nick Nemeth, but like before them getting to the top of the card, I would say that with Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, once they left TNA, Josh and Macklin are kind of like the poster boys, if you will, are like the previous generation of the top of the card. Because I put Nick and Joe into like the newer generation of the top of the card, if that makes any sense. Macklin has been here for a while. Josh has been here for a while. And so they are slowly becoming the vets. And I felt like this match is definitely showcasing what people who've been in this company, the vets, what they can do. And we'll talk about how the newer kids did when we get to their match a little bit later. But this was a very solid match. And honestly, this ended up in my top like 4 matches of the evening, possibly top 3. Well, at this point of the night, because then we get into our next title match, and this is everything that I wanted. This is 10 out of 10 for me. I do not care. This was amazing. This was fun. I got my Monsters Ball match, and the other two, if they disagree, well, I'm the boss, so I get the final say. But for the TNA Digital Media and the International Wrestling Championships, we have PCO defending the titles against one Mr. Matthew Cardona, Matt Cardona, Mr. Chelsea Green, if you will. And this was a Monsters Ball match. I want to grow up and be PCO when I get older, you guys. Like, how is this man at this age still doing the things that he do? And I brought this up during the actual watch along, and I was telling Andrew this. Andrew, I swear, PCO, I feel like could at least do one GCW match, just one, and we will be okay. Like, literally have him show up at Monsters Bash on Halloween and just let him have a death match with somebody. I would love to see it, but this match, I'm going to channel my inner Stefan from SNL, be like, it has everything. It had thumbtacks. It had doors. It had door bridges. It had tables. It had everything and everything. It is so fabulous. Oh my goodness. I really enjoyed this match. At the end of this, PCO does pick up the victory. He is still the champion. I feel that we are moving on from PCO and Matt since Steph is out of the picture due to injury. So I think we are moving on for both of them. But I'm going to go to Will first. Monsters Ball match, Will, PCO versus Matt Cardona. How did we feel about the build-up, the match itself, and just your overall thoughts?
Well, I thought the build-up was pretty good. I mean, we've had quite a bit of it. So we kind of knew – I think we kind of knew what the outcome of this one was going to be, because it was – excuse me – it's PCO's sort of redemption of his bride's, Stephanie's, like, honor being sort of tarnished. And so, and it was, I think it was the final thing so PCO put Matt Cardona in his place. And I think Matt Cardona is going to go lick his wounds and go off and try to focus on something different, knowing that PCO basically thrashed him in a Monsters Ball. So, and then this one was brutal. This one was just as brutal as the last one I watched, which was great. There was more, actually, I had to say, there was more blood in this one than in the last one we saw.
This
even
one was wild.
Yeah, even though, I mean, because PCO was in the last one too, and he had thumbtacks all in him. But this one was like in the front. And then the barbed wire, and then it was just bloody. And then something happened to Matt's leg at some point, and he was bleeding.
That was a lot of blood.
It was. I'm assuming it probably had to do with that door, that one door. Maybe it hit him in the shin or something and broke the skin. Something happened, but he was bleeding a lot. But I loved this match because even though I kind of figured what the outcome was going to be, there were moments where I wasn't sure. That I was like, oh wow, are they really going to have Matt Cardona just humiliate PCO. It's like, so you know, like for this thing, I was like, no, surely this is going to be the end. This has got to be the ending of this sort of feud. And so, of course, PCO pulled it out at the end, and I mean, that was just so fantastic. And it was just, and I agree. I don't see how the man does it day after day and maintains. I mean, you know, and I give so much credit to PCO because my gosh, this man is jumping off the top ropes. This man is jumping from the ring to the floor. This man is getting thrown through tables with chairs and doors, and he just gets up and keeps going as if nothing happened. I just don't get it. I mean, the man he must have, you know, adamantium bones or something, because dear Lord. And I mean, how old did we find out he was? Wasn't he like 50?
56, I believe.
56? The man's 3 years older than I am. And I can't even imagine. I mean, I look at a thing over here on the counter wrong and throw my back out. I mean, how is this man not? I mean, seriously, good on you, PCO. Like, seriously, you are a brick shithouse, dude.
Well, the crazy thing about this too, as you know, Andrew kind of found out for us when we were talking about PCO last time, is that he was supposed to retire, and then he's like, you know what, I'm gonna give wrestling one more shot and see where it takes me, and he has never looked back since. This man
crazy
is amazing, and he is just the way that the crowd is so behind PCO. I love it so much. Like, I love PCO because I'm a sucker for gimmicky characters. His Frankenstein monster thing is a gimmick, and I love it. But Andrew, we come to you. You know, as our resident GCW fan, me and you have been very familiar with the work of, you know, Deathmatch King himself, Matthew Cardona. How did you feel about Matt kind of bringing in a little bit of GCW into TNA, and your overall thoughts of the Monsters Ball match?
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was a really fun match. Up to this point, this was probably my match of the night, or at least the match I had enjoyed the most up to this point. I got a kick out of seeing them pull the doors out, especially because later we saw people using tables, so it was clear that they had set these doors specifically as a nod to GCW. I know they weren't going to be busting out light tubes and that kind of stuff, but it was cool to see, you know, they bring out the thumbtacks and things get a little more than hardcore matches we see in some other promotions. It was a really fun match. It definitely had a point where I thought Matt Cardona might actually win, and then PCO picked up the victory. I think this is a good way to wrap it up, especially because Steph got injured, or I guess has been injured and is finally getting that repaired. I think it's likely that we'll see Matt maybe step away from TNA from this and start to be more active, because he's a big independent wrestler, and that's where he really likes being, because he just gets to control that. But he also, I feel like it gave him such a resurgence in his career. He feels like that's like his world. He wants to stay true to that too. He obviously has a huge involvement in GCW, and I'm ready to see what they're going to do with PCO and with this digital media title. I want to see some more development here in that division as well. So.
I agree with both of you. I think more development. I want to see more development with PCO and who his next opponent is going to be for these titles. And then on top of that, too, I agree that I think Matt is done with TNA for a little bit, and hopefully we'll see more of him come 2025, and, you know, all that good stuff too. So we shall see. So we move on from our Monsters Ball match into the next one, which is, again, I had said at the top of this, I had said that this should have had a gimmick, because this was literally a blood feud between these two. Like, Mike Santana has been jumping the system for weeks leading into this, and Moose also jumped Mike Santana after the brutal Texas death match that Mike Santana and Johnny Dango Curtis had, which was also really good as well. But by the end of this match, and I am okay with eating crow on this one because these two brutalized each other and it did not need a gimmick or blood to emphasize this pack. This ended up being my second favorite match of the whole entire evening. I thought this was a really solid match. Moose versus Mike Santana. I think it's safe to say, I think this is the end of this feud between Moose and Mike Santana because Mike has been going through the system one by one. He finally gets a shot at Moose, and it ends with Mike Santana having probably the best match in TNA since his return in April, in my personal opinion. And I think that's a testament to how great Mike Santana is, but also how good Moose is. And I feel like Moose doesn't get enough credit because we talk about the Josh Alexanders, we talk about the Joe Hendrys, but I also feel like Moose should be in that conversation of like who are you're probably the best of the men's division in TNA currently, and I put Moose in that category. But this match was awesome. This ended up being my second favorite match of the whole entire evening. I think they brutalized each other, and even with the shenanigans from Johnny Dango Curtis getting involved in this match, Mike Santana did not care. He took out Johnny Dango Curtis. He took out Moose. So Santana was flying all over the place, which is very impressive for a tall man like himself. I thought this was a phenomenal match. Andrew, I'm going to come to you first. This is the end probably of this feud. So how do we feel about Moose versus Mike Santana?
This was another great match. I thought this was basically very similar to the Alexander Macklin match that we got, but even a step farther. Both these guys are so good, and it's one of those things where I kind of feel like you forget when they're, especially because they're out of the title picture right now, you forget how good they are, and then you see them in there, and you're like, God, yeah, they're so good. And Moose, especially because he plays such a good heel that you just want to hate him, but then you see him in the ring, and you're like, God, that guy's really good. I was saying it during the live watch along that, you know, my biggest thing with Santana is I feel like there's so many people in the world title picture right now that he's been kind of overlooked. When he came in right on the heels of Nick Nemeth, and then Joe Hendry got real hot. Obviously, Josh Alexander's becoming a big heel. Moose is the champion, and it seemed like there was a feud going there, but that feud stepped out of the world title picture. And in this match, I really got keen to the idea of Mike Santana making an X Division title run. But either way, I think we need to start seeing more use of Mike Santana, especially now that it does seem like this feud is over. Because what he's done with the resurgence of his career, both in professional life but also personal life, is really incredible. And I feel like not only has he earned it in the ring, but I feel like he's really done it for himself outside of the ring too. So I really hope for the best for him. And both these guys, I think, are such top stars in TNA that this match was really, really good. This was up there with one of my top matches of the night too.
I love it. All righty. Will, I'm going to tag you in next. How did we feel about Moose and Mike Santana?
Well, you know me. Any moment and any chance that someone beats the hell out of the system, I'm there for it. So I have been waiting for this match actually since Moose attacked Santana after he annihilated Dango, which was, like you said, was an absolutely fantastic match. And then Moose, of course, came out and assaulted him. And then I was like, okay, I've been waiting for this match to happen. And then it happened. And this was definitely up there in my top three for the evening. And I loved every second of it, mainly because it was Santana beating up the system. And especially the head of the system made it even better. I was like, yes. And I also agree with Andrew that I think we need to see Santana going for a title at some point. I think TNA needs him in a title somewhere because he's just so darn good. He's good at he's like well-rounded. Like he's good at promos. He's good at like live promos. Like, I mean, he's just really good. And I agree. I think he kind of got lost when he first came in because so many other things were happening. But now I think that now that we've had him literally take on the whole system, I think they really need to start pushing him to a title run. Whatever title that may be, X Division or whatever. I think he'd be great in the X Division, to be honest, but they need to start pushing him to a title because he's just too good. And if it were me and I owned TNA, I'd be scared that he'd go away. That he'd like find another company to go with. So I'm like, yeah, come, let me put you in a title run because you truly deserve it. I really think so. I really think he does. So, no, this was a great match. This was a brutal match. Loved it. It was exactly what I thought it was going to be and what I was hoping it would be, and turned out exactly the way I wanted it to. So, yeah.
I love this match. This was my second favorite match of the evening. And again, everything that we've seen so far was on an upward trajectory. And then I'm sitting, you know what? I'm feeling good. I wonder, how we're going to keep this momentum going. I guess that. Oh my God. Okay. So next up, we have the TNA Knockouts World Championship. I'm just going to bury the lead here. This was my match of the night. This was the match for me. This is the best match of the three we've gotten between Jordan and Masha for the championship. And I'm going to say it unless anything changes. I think this is my favorite TNA women's match of the year. And as of right now, this is my number one women's match of the year of 2024 so far. But this match had everything going right for it. It had storytelling. We've been building this up for months. We've been playing on the long-standing feud that we had. But what made it better for me, and it doesn't necessarily need to be this way, but this was a true face-on-face interaction, a face-on-face match, and these were two best friends just going at it and giving everything they had in this match, and it definitely paid off. Holy crap. There is not enough words to describe how good this match was, how amazing Jordan and Masha were, and I was so happy with the end result of this, which I'll discuss at the end. But I'm going to go to Andrew first on this one. Grace versus Slamovich. We have been following these two forever. Andrew, how did this match go for you?
I mean, it was all right. No, I'm just kidding. No, this was definitely my match of the night too. Both just the match itself, the build up to this match, and the outcome and the post-match interaction. This definitely felt like it was fitting in the long line of Knockouts title changes that we've seen over the last 2 years with, Deonna Purrazzo, Trinity, Jordan Grace, Masha Slamovich. A true feeling of like passing the torch. I also love that like the women that held the title really got to have a run and got to clear out the division and show that they are the best at that time in their division. I feel much like those women too, that it's also signaling the end of Jordan Grace in TNA, which I'm okay with. I think she has done so much. She is ready to move on to other pastures. Whether they're bigger or just different, I think we kind of know where she's going to be going. And I look forward to seeing what is going to happen with her. She deserves every minute of it. But conversely, Masha Slamovich also, she has, she's been doing so much, both in TNA and outside of TNA. I think she now deserves a chance to hold this title, make a really good run with it, and likely end up in the same path. These two killed each other, and I love watching people wrestle who are really good friends and really know each other, because I feel like outside of the ring, they put in the work to really make that match mean something. And I feel like every moment that they're doing something, they have an investment in it. Um, and something that's happened in all those matches is I feel like the outgoing champion has really, they've been as excited for the new champion to really look good and earn that spot and move into that position. And I felt like we had that in this. And it was a huge moment for Masha, and I'm so happy for her. Getting to see her even more in GCW, as well as getting to see her on TNA has just made me more and more of a fan of hers. I love what she's doing, and I think she's going to be an awesome Knockouts champion. And I hope that if they don't build up this division, I hope they at least continue to do what they did with Jordan Grace for her.
Alrighty, I'm going to tag Will in next. So, Will, why don't you give us our thoughts? Your thoughts, I should say.
This was my match of the night because these two women are badasses, and this match just was off the hook. Truly. I thought it ended exactly the way it should have. I felt that it was the right time for Jordan Grace to step out and someone new to take her place, and Masha was the absolute best choice for that. So I think that Masha will go on to represent the company very well. I think she's a great competitor. She's a great person. I love the fact that these two women are friends. And again, I'm a sucker for the gentleman fight. Sorry, I had to put gentleman in there, but the fact that, Masha went over and lifted Jordan up and held her up and was like, that was just such a beautiful moment. And I got a little teary-eyed because I always do. But I just loved it. It was just, it was everything I had hoped for and more. And it was just, it was fantastic. If you haven't watched it, go watch the fight. It was really good. You will not be disappointed.
No, it was fantastic. And just to wrap it up before we go into our next match, again, I thought that this was my favorite. This was my match of the night. This was definitely such a good match, in ring, out ring, like everything has already been said. From post our Knockouts tag team match, every match that was leading into this, I was like, oh, the energy's up. We might recover from this. We might actually get to, I was like, depending on how the next two matches go, I might end up getting this close, or maybe just a little bit above, my Hard to Kill as my favorite pay-per-view of the year. Okay. This one's going to be tough to talk about, because I think I'm going to make everybody mad on this one, right? So next up in the semi-main event was the TNA World Championship match. So this had our challenger, Joe Hendry, who we all believe in, taking on the wanted man.
Except for Mikey, who voted for Nick Nemeth.
Yes. Okay. Listen, we're going to talk about that. Don't expose me like that. I'm just kidding. No, I said it as much. I picked Nick Nemeth because I'm trying to win this predictions league, but that doesn't mean I liked my choice. Okay. Like, yes, I got the point, but at what cost? Because my soul was crushed. But anyways, so Joe Hendry was the challenger. Nick Nemeth was the champion. Frankie Kazarian, for some odd reason, was our guest referee. Because why not? Okay. So I have had time to process my emotions. I have time to reflect. I found my zen, and I've come to the conclusion that I'm still bummed that Joe Hendry did not win. But I don't think I think I'm not as heartbroken now as I was last night when it first happened. But that's because I'm holding on to the hope that we get a rematch down the line because of all the shenanigans that happened in the match. And I feel like that's kind of what took away some points for me for this match, of how overbooked it was. I feel that Frankie teasing and cashing in would have been enough, or even we didn't even need Frankie to tease he was going to cash in the Collier shot. We could have just had JBL come in and wreck house, and I would have been okay with it. But because you have both Frankie and Mr. John Bradshaw Layfield come in, and then Nick Nemeth getting his lights punched out in the process too, like the last like 5 minutes were an overbooked mess, and I feel like it did not need to be there, and it kind of took some points away from it. I'm still bummed Joe Hendry lost, but I'm holding on to the hope that we get a rematch down the line. If not at the last 2 pay-per-views this year, give this man the title at Genesis, because Genesis, by definition, is a new beginning. And so hopefully the 2025 will have a new beginning for TNA with Joe Hendry as the winner, and which will be perfect to give this man the title so that way he can make his appearance in the Rumble 2 weeks later. Anyways, I digress. So I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go with Will first because he is the president of the Joe Hendry fan club. So I want his thoughts. I'm just kidding. I want your thoughts on this. Now, it is no secret that we were all kind of heartbroken. In fact, Will had his camera on because he was crying afterwards. I'm just kidding. Will, I'm going to come to you first. How did you feel about the match? How did you feel about the results? And how did you feel about the overbooked mess that was everything in the last 5 minutes?
Well, yes, I was very upset about the outcome of this match, but I also kind of expected the outcome of this match because when we were doing our predictions, I chose Joe Hendry because I wanted him to win. I did not necessarily think he was going to, but the way he did not win, I was not expecting. I thought that, and this is one of those things, and I'm going to go off on a rant because I feel that this match was super overbloated. I don't understand why. I understand you want shenanigans to make it interesting. That's cool. But there was a lot going on in this match that I don't think necessarily needed to happen. There was a lot of interference. There was a lot of, whatever, this, that, and the other. And I'm sorry. The whole time I was watching it, because I was off camera watching it, because I was very upset. And the whole time I was like, why would you do this here? I mean, is it just for ratings? Is that what? Because that's what it felt like. It felt like this was a ratings push. It's like, ooh, let's do this huge upset. We'll bring in people that don't have any business being here. We'll throw some people in. We'll create some new storyline. This, that, or the other. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting there going, this was not the place for that. This was a title match, and I think it was cheapened by all of the BS around it. And it really pissed me off, and I don't think Joe Hendry had an actual fair chance because there was too much crap going on. And I'm like, and I know, and there are people out there that are very much like, well, it's just, it's wrestling. It's just a performance. I'm like, yeah, I get that. But, as in all things, novels, movies, plays, whatever, you buy into the characters. And I was bought in, and I feel like the author of the novel changed the ending on me at the end. And by introducing characters that have not been in play, and it just really irritated me. And I'm just like, and I hope this leads to a rematch, which I'm pretty sure it will. But I just hate the fact that we went through all of this for this. So I was upset. And it wasn't just because Joe Hendry didn't win. That was a huge part of it. But I was just so upset that they felt they had to put all this stuff in there to make it an interesting match because of I don't get it. I just don't get it. So I was actually kind of pissed. So that's kind of why I had my camera off again, my muted, because I was so mad. I was just so angry at this whole final match of the night, and I was just like, and it brought me down. And I was just like, why? That's all I kept asking is why. And so, yeah, did I want Joe win? Absolutely, I wanted Joe win. Of course, I think half the universe wanted Joe to win, and I just felt that the whole match was a disappointment because I would have been okay. Even I wanted Joe to win, but I figured Nick was going to retain. But I wanted the match to be a match. Let them freaking fight without all the interference. I mean, we already had Frankie Kazarian hanging out there, which is already, screwing shit up. And then we introduced two other people, who why? Why are they even there? I don't understand. And I know there's history amongst people. I get it, but I'm sorry. I thought it was inappropriate. Dare I say. So that is my 2 cents. And you can hate me for it if you want. I don't care.
All righty, Andrew. I'm going to come to you next. Give us your thoughts about this match.
I'll start with the match itself was actually good. Like the two of these guys look really good wrestling each other. Nick Nemeth is always a great performer and always looks really good and makes his opponents look really good. I think Joe Hendry is actually getting better and better every time, especially the popularity that he has developed has given him so much more experience because he's gone off and wrestled so many different people. He's been put in a lot more matches. So the match itself was a good match. I agree. The whole I think if the only shenanigans we got was Kazarian faking out, cashing in multiple times, I'd have been okay with that. My biggest issue is the outcome of this match had me more interested in what's going on with JBL than what's going to happen next for this. Because the fact that, and maybe it's because I am aware of the other promotions that he is showing up in, I want to know what's going on because he's been so cryptic and been so mysterious, and he's been involved with such a variety of different performers. I want to know is he building his Suicide Squad of professional wrestlers and getting all of these different kinds of competitors that he's going to put together for something big. Is he just using it as hype to do his own thing? But it had me more interested in that. I want to know what he said to Joe Hendry because Joe obviously didn't agree with it, and he grabbed him to say something, and then that's when JBL clotheslined him. I just really hope that they have a plan for now through Genesis, with everything that comes up between now and really February. I hope that we do get to see Joe Hendry win this title. I hope that Nick Nemeth loses the title in a way that is good and exciting. I hope, when Frankie cashes this his chance in, that it pays into these stories long term. So I hope that there is a plan going into this. That's what I just keep thinking is I may not have agreed with what happened. Obviously, I wanted Joe Hendry to win. Wasn't a huge fan of the way it happened, but if it was going to happen anyway, I guess this is a good enough way for it to happen. But I'm just hoping that TNA, this is all part of the plan, and that in 2 or 3 months from now, it'll be like, okay, yeah, that all makes sense. We're happy with the outcome that we got long term. So I guess at this point, I'm at the point where I have to see and wait. But this wasn't what I wanted, and I think I was as surprised with the way I felt with this match as I was where it was placed in the card. And I think they placed it there specifically because of what the outcome was going to be. They wanted to end on a high note. Yeah, it was kind of a bummer, but I'll give TNA the benefit of the doubt at least for a little while.
I agree. And I think that goes back to what I said at the beginning when we started discussing this match. I'm holding on hope that Joe will have the title and that he will get a rematch, because looking back on everything Joe has done, every opponent that he's gone up against, he's had a losing effort, but ultimately wins when it counts. Like, he beat Josh Alexander at Victory Road. You know, he ended up beating Moose earlier in the year after, Moose wasn't taking him seriously. And I think TNA has a prime opportunity, because I'm going to be real with y'all. I think Joe Hendry is the underdog for the men's division. He is that underdog character, and we all love a good underdog story. So as much as I really wanted Joe to win here, I think TNA, for the most part, hasn't necessarily steered me wrong yet in a egregious way. And we have the remainder of 2024 and leading into Genesis for them to do something with Joe. And we're just going to have to wait and see. I'm really holding on hope that Joe will finally get his moment to shine. But I agree with you, Andrew, and I'm more interested to see what is going on with JBL, because this was not the first appearance he made here, because he made his appearance at Victory Road as well after Nick's match with Moose. And, he's been popping up in all the other places. I mean, he's aligned himself with Nick. He's aligned himself with Mance Warner and GCW. And he's traveling to all these other places. So I don't know what's going on. This is getting weird and crazy. But we move on from our semi-main event into what was the main event for Bound for Glory this year. But first, TNA announced that they're bringing back Genesis, which is another big name pay-per-view. So instead of Hard to Kill, in January, we are getting TNA's Genesis, which is going to be taking place Sunday, not a Saturday, Sunday, January 19th, 2025, and it will be taking place in Dallas, Texas. Will is the closest of the three of us to this event. So if we cannot find a way to get, a group trip out there, or one of us to go out there with Will, we're going to find a way for him so he can be our on-the-ground correspondent for Genesis. But I am happy that they're bringing back Genesis, because in the history of TNA, Genesis is a really important pay-per-view and is super important. So I'm super excited that, they're announcing the beginning of 2025, and it's going to be great. Side note, we're going to have a conversation when we go off air, because we have already run into a snack for January of what's happening, but I'm excited. Now we can talk about our main event, which was the TNA World Tag Team Championship match, Full Metal Mayhem, which came from the mind of Jeff Hardy, because everything from the ladders to the canvas to the tables were all painted by Jeff Hardy, who I must say that took a lot of work, and I commend him for his talent. While this match did start off slow for the first couple of minutes, it literally then kicked into high gear. And then I was clutching my pearls because I thought people were dead. We had, let's see what happened. Brian Myers got thrown through a table. Jeff Hardy and Ace Austin slammed themselves onto the specialty ladder after getting knocked off. I thought Jeff Hardy concussed himself when he did a flip into a table onto, Eddie Edwards. We had the recreation of the Edge spear from the belt spot, as Chris Bay took that brunt of the whole entire thing. Chair shots, table shots. This was just pure mayhem, as the match itself is entitled. Andrew, I'm going to come to you first. This was our main event of the evening. My God, these three teams put their bodies and souls on the line. How do we feel about Full Metal Mayhem?
I was so worried throughout most of this match. Mostly I was worried that the Hardys were going to legitimately break.
I know. The whole time I was like, Matthew and Jeffrey, what are we doing?
But even outside of them, there were some spots that people took that I was very concerned for them. I'm sure many of them came out with quite some bumps and bruises. I thought the pacing was pretty good. It's always hard to have a triple threat tag team hardcore ladder match. Because the ring can get very full. There can be action that can be missed. I thought they did a good job of kind of mixing it up. I commend, the Hardys for being in there with these two other 10 to 20 year younger competitors. The System and ABC, I said it when we were watching it too, are two of the best tag teams right now. They're so good at what they do with tag team wrestling. Very different styles. So it was, the action was a lot of fun. For not going completely insane. I thought they did a good job with hitting some big spots. And, they were my pick because I thought this was going to happen. And I think it is smart what they did with the Hardys, having them win and ending with a big pop and giving the Hardys like a last chance to really, relive their glory days. I don't think this reign is going to be super long. And I think TNA has actually done a really good job of using the Hardys in such a way that we get to see those big pop moments, the hot spots from them, but then also not put them in a situation where they're going to get hurt or look like they're not able to keep up with the other teams. So I think they're smart with the way that they book it and the way that the people they wrestle against them. I imagine we'll probably get some matches with them against the system because the system are the champs coming into this, so they'll probably enact that rematch clause. And it'll be fun to see them face some of the other TNA tag teams out there, and probably lose it at one of the big pay-per-views coming in within the next few months or so.
Absolutely. All right, Will. Now let's get your thoughts on Full Metal Mayhem. What do we think?
Well, I agree with everything you guys said. I was afraid that people were going to die, and I thought for what there was it Jeff Hardy that hit that rung on that ladder?
Those two tables did not break, and he hit the back of his head. I'm like, Jeffrey, no!
I mean, there was even that moment where he like checked to see if he was bleeding.
Blood, yep. I was like,
and I was like, oh, God bless. And I was just like, and that's, and I know that them's is the breaks when it comes to this type of wrestling. And I get it, accidents happen. But some of they were, I think, with these ladder matches, the thing that really kind of scares the absolute bejesus out of me is that, one, you've got all that adrenaline flowing and you are going and you're locked in, and then you're on a ladder that's like shaky. I'm just like, there's a lot of like things that could go horribly wrong here. And there were a couple of moments that some things did go pretty bad. And then I made the comment a couple of times, was like, OSHA's not here and they should be, or some of those ladder configurations, I was just like, what are you doing? Oh my God. Like when they put the one through across and all, you had two going up the ladder and then two coming on the side, I was just like, somebody's about to die, someone's going to get seriously injured. I thought that it was good though. I thought all three of the teams were pretty good. I mean, even the Hardys, and I know they're older and kind of more on the going out end of things, but I thought they did pretty good. The moment of everything, it was when Alicia Edwards was taught a lesson. And it was my moment. It's my moment for the year. It's my moment for everything. I was just like, that was the best thing. And then at that point, I didn't care who won. I was like, anybody can win at this point. I got what I wanted out of it. And that was beautiful. It was a beautiful moment. And then and literally at that point, I was like, I really don't care who wins this match anymore. So it's like, but it was pretty good though. It was a good match. I thought it was pretty chaotic and scary, and I think that's kind of what they were going for. So well done. And well done to the Hardys. Good for you guys. Like truly.
Yeah, I agree with you, Will, in the sense that watching, Alicia get a twist of fate done to her was fantastically fun. Andrew, I agree with you. I do not see the Hardys holding these things on for long, but I also agree with you, Andrew, in the sense that I think that TNA has done a good job utilizing the Hardy and what they are capable of doing at this point. So I think this is going to be a good one. And, with the Hardy celebrating in the crowd, that brings us to the end of Bound for Glory. We're going to give our empanada ratings, and then we are going to get into the leaderboard and an announcement about said leaderboard after I show it. So I will go first. I'm probably going to cause some head scratches from my hosts here, but despite some of the critiques I gave Bound for Glory, I do think this was a solid show through and through. There was a lot I liked. There's only a couple of spots that I didn't. And I'm going to give Bound for Glory an 8 out of 10. I really thought this was a solid show. It was nowhere near the level of hype that last year's Bound for Glory was. And it unfortunately didn't come close to all the thrills that was Hard to Kill earlier this year for me. But I really think this was a solid show. I thought this was fantastic. I thought it was amazing. And even despite my critiques, I really thought that this was great. So I give this an 8 out of 10. I'm going to go down the line and I'm going to start with Will. Will, how many empanadas out of 10 do you give Bound for Glory 2024?
I gave it an 8 out of 10. I didn't think it was that bad. Again, I don't think it was like last year, but it was, even with my issues with like certain matches, I thought it was a pretty solid pay-per-view. You know, again, I don't think it matched the hype from last year. Last year's was just off the hook. I thought there were some wonderful moments in this rendition of Bound for Glory. I thought there were some really great matches. I thought there was a couple of matches that were kind of You know, that was the thing I think from last year's. Every match from last year was like spot on. And this year, I thought they had a couple of misses, couple of misfires. But overall, I was like, okay. I mean, I would give it a solid 8 out of 10 for sure. Plus, it had my favorite moment of the year in it, so I had to give it a little extra for that.
Alrighty, Andrew, same question to you. How many empanadas do you give Bound for Glory 2024?
I also give it an 8 out of 10. I thought it was a really fun show. Overall, I enjoyed it. There were a couple of lulls here and there, but for the most part, every match was really good. Really enjoyed it. And actually, because of all of the kind of input and investment and everything that I got from watching the Knockouts title match, I actually bumped this up to an 8.5. So it was, it was in that B range, just shy of being a B plus, better than a B minus for me. I enjoyed it. I thought all but 2 of the matches were actually really great matches. One of those matches was still a really good match. The only one that just kind of missed the mark for me really was the Call Your Shot Gauntlet. And, that's hard to really judge as a match by itself. So, yeah, I enjoyed Bound for Glory this year. I also agree, though, was definitely not the size of the show that they did last year. So I think they're going to keep running into that comparison because we're getting farther and farther away from the Scott D'Amore time. And at this point, we were really into the height of that. So it'll be interesting to see what we do and what more TNA really does add to this, because I feel like they need to make some more investments.
I 100% agree. So that is going to be our, for the review portion of Grapple Gurus. But there are 2 last things that we're going to do. So let's check out the leaderboard, shall we? So if you are new here to Grapple Gurus, what we have been doing this year is that for every promotion, WWE, AEW, TNA, and ROH, we have Predictions League, and every pay-per-view, I send out a predictions form to the crew of those specific shows that they review. And what's at stake here is that the ultimate winner by the end of the prediction season will get a little championship belt, saying that they are the 2024 predictions champ. And the loser is going to have to wear a wrestling singlet for a week of reviews that they are on. So that means that by the end of this prediction season, either myself, Will, or Andrew will have to wear a wrestling singlet on air for a TNA review, which is going to be fantastic. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's check out where everybody is. So after Bound for Glory, this is where everybody stands, and I'm going to start from third to first. So in third place, with a Bound for Glory record of 7-2 and an overall record of 32-23, is Papa Oso himself, Will. In second place, also getting 7-2 for Bound for Glory, and an overall record of 37-18 is Andrew. And barely squeaking by in first place is myself, with a Bound for Glory record of 8-1, because I only got one wrong this whole entire pay-per-view, and that was the main event, and an overall record of 38-17. I am in first, but Andrew is hot on my trail. And with some pay-per-views left, who knows, Will might overtake the both of us. It just depends on everything. So the second thing is I have an announcement about said predictions league for TNA. So after thinking about this for a little bit, and the fact that we really only started doing these predictions with Rebellion, which was in April, the announcement that I am going to make is that the TNA season will not end at Final Resolution this year. We are going to extend it, and I think it is fair to go from Rebellion to Rebellion. So therefore, for TNA, the Predictions League is going to end at Rebellion 2025, which means that Turning Point, Final Resolution, Genesis, and the February and March pay-per-views and Rebellion are going to count for the overall record, because I think that's fair. Kind of like with WWE, we're going WrestleMania to WrestleMania. So, Will, you still have like 6 pay-per-views to kind of try to shatter the machine, if you will, and take over. And that also gives me and Andrew time to screw up our predictions and do horrible. I did so bad at Victory Road. I ended in third with 5-5. Victory Road screwed me out of my predictions so bad. And Will and Andrew did so much better. And then if I remember correctly, I think Will won Victory Road predictions too. And he wasn't even there for the review.
Yeah, I didn't realize I'm like one behind you right now. So I got to stop making my predictions based on what I want to happen and actually make them based on logically knowing wrestling enough.
You have to find a balance, because I shared this story during the watch along, and I'll share it here again. When I was in 4th place for AEW leading into Forbidden Door back in June, because I kept getting screwed over by AEW. But then I went almost a whole clean sweep, and I was 11-1 because it was a 12-match card, and I ended up pulling in first. But Crosswave is right behind my tail in AEW. And in WWE, it is really close. There's only like 1 point separating everybody from first, second, and third. So WWE is really close. And ROH, there's a big gap because JVL went clean 12-0 for Supercard of Honor. And I ended up getting screwed over. So I'm currently in last. So that I need to, and Final Battle didn't really do well for me either. So I'm just like, I think I'm wearing that wrestling singlet for ROH.
Well, and that's a hard one for ROH because there's like 4 shows in the whole year. So
it's ridiculous. So I am just remiss, and I'm just going to be wearing that wrestling singlet. But we'll see what happens, because, ROH right now is just me and Jesse. So who knows what's about to go down. And we have until December for our Final Battle. So we'll see what goes with all of that. But that's going to be it for this Grapple Gurus. Thank you so much for tuning in this evening. This was a lovely talk, gentlemen. And I am super happy that the trio was reunited for the last 3 days, 72 hours. And now we have to say goodbye to Andrew once again as he goes back into the ether. Well, hopefully not for long. Hopefully come January, we can get him back regularly, but we'll figure it all out. Andrew will still be around because we have some GCW stuff coming up in November that I am super excited for, because we are doing the Nick Gage Invitational 9 also, and that's going to be one of Sawyer Rex final shows. I was so bummed.
I don't know, because I saw her post. She said her last wrestling appearance is going to be November 16th, and the Nick Gage Invitational is at the 16th or the 19th?
It's the 16th. It's that day.
Cool.
So.
Okay, cool. So if that's her last appearance, okay. That I was so worried. I was like, that made me extra bummed. But if she's gonna at least be there for that, at least I
She'll
get to
be
see
at the
her
gate
a couple more times.
for sure. So we will be okay. But so this is going to be an interesting week because we will have another Grapple Gurus episode tomorrow evening, but it will be myself and Minnie as we cover NXT's Halloween Havoc, which occurred this evening, which I was watching before we came on air. So I got all that all situated. And then, this week is actually just back to our normal reviews. So we have AEW on Tuesday, NXT and CMLL on Wednesday. And on Friday, we have Ring of Honor and TNA. And then next Sunday is our, WWE show. And we don't have to worry about pay-per-views for quite a bit of time until the Nick Gage Invitational kicks off November. But I am super excited. So stay tuned later this week for the pay-per-view schedule. But for myself, Will, Andrew, and the rest of the BC WrestlePod family, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, stay Bi-Conic, and more importantly than anything, you always deserve to finish your story. We'll catch you for another exciting week of wrestling, but until then, sayonara, adios, and we'll catch you later.